thoughts and prayers are with him. But now would like to look at the national census, which is coming up very soon. And one of the questions that we had asked this morning is whether you are in, you have good knowledge. Are you well informed on the significance of the upcoming census? And that's one of the things we'd like to, demystify and look at this morning. And just to read some of your comments, I see Big Fish who says, I will decline to answer some of the questions that I am asked, like, are you employed? What kind of work do you do? How many children do you have? I also have Martin Karuga who says that I do not understand the significance of this census, and that's why we're going to be discussing it this morning. But just let's look at it first of all before we start. And the census 2019 is something that was started off pre-independence in 1948 and 1962. And some of the census that we have had was in 1969, 1979, 89, 99, and 2009. Let's move on to the next board. Where we have more details and who will be counted. Well, persons found in their households, and this is why there had been an announcement which was later said to not have been done by the president regarding a public holiday on Monday, next Monday, but that apparently was not the case. Persons found in households, outdoor sleepers, persons on transit, individuals in hotels and lodges, institutions such as hospitals, prisons, and army barracks, amongst others. Let's move on to the next board, where we have what's new. The first census since the promulgation of the current constitution. We've not had any other that has been done from the time we got the constitution 2010. This is the first one. The enumerators will be carried out, or rather the enumeration will be carried out using a digital gadgets. Again, the previous census that we have had before have been census where they did it on paper. This is the first time it's going to be done on tabs, and all the questions are going to be tabulated on tabs. More details on agriculture. Something else that's new, it's the first time that we're going to be having persons with intersex with their own category right there. That's the first time it's happening, and by the way, that's the first time that it's happening in Africa as well. Areas of focus is ICT. Now, why this is crucial is that it informs where the country is today and also where the country is headed. Livestock, agriculture, of course, is a big one there, given food security is one of the things that Kenya needs to take care of. And also the fact that agriculture for a long time has been discussed in this country, but has funds and allocation been done adequately for the census to be done? That's one of the areas that's going to be looked at. Disability is key as well. Persons living with disability have for a long time also been marginalized or not taken care of as they should. Just looking at some examples, maybe looking at the buildings and the structures that we have, or even our public transport system, it excludes people with disability, or rather does not take them into account. So during the census, would like to get numbers and figures as to that. Education is crucial. Remember, not too long ago, we had a number of, I think it was about 3 million students who were not accounted for, given that once they had been registered in the education system, they could not be found. This could have been as a result of not having proper birth certificates. So during the census, this also gives us clear figures of how many children and students are there. Then the labor force is also something else that is crucial. In terms of the questions that one might ask, why is this important? It is also what advises revenue allocation and the distribution of revenue in the country. One of the other areas that will also be waited for during the census is the IEBC is waiting patiently for these figures for the delineation of borders. So that's basically what we have in terms of facts and figures that are given for that. So that's one of the discussions that we'd like to have this morning, and would like to find out from you whether you know what it is. But I'll start with you, Ambrose Weda, in regards to why this is crucial and important, and why it is something that the government should also be putting more efforts in terms of civic education for people to understand the importance. I've seen one person there saying that they would not give some details, which according to law, they would actually be either fined or arrested, just to make it clear.
Yes, I think it would be critical as a citizen. It is your civic responsibility to provide information that will enable government, that will enable the state to then organize itself in a way that it can render services, it can have deal with your needs. That aspect is also backed by law, so that somebody acting in public, a public officer, has certain rights that, and then you have certain obligations. For instance, if you give false information to anybody employed the public or acting as a public officer or as in public, that's a criminal offense. Failing to disclose certain information, again, that is also a criminal offense. But let's not look at it more as offense. Let's look at it as a civic duty, because it is critical. We must know how many people are in the country, what is their gender, what is their ages, what is their state. All these things are crucial if we are going to have a good country. So somebody saying, I will not answer this question beforehand, even before the question is asked, is basically wrong. Although I know some questions will be very difficult to answer. One, if it is easy to ask a lady, how many children do you have? And he'll tell you, I have 3, because it's a fact. But it's very difficult to ask a man how many children you have. He may ask to tell you now, have in this house or have where? And if men were to answer, if women were to answer, and the men want to answer, we will have disparities in these figures. Because whether will tell you if I'm with the Beatrice, in our house with the Honorable Beatrice, and we have our 2 children, I'll say 2 children. It means my other extra child somewhere will not have somebody answering for him. So I think some questions will be difficult, but let the ladies answer.
Let the ladies answer.
Accurately.
Let me hear from Dr. Nahashon, you're a policy consultant, and the importance of having a national census before we even come to the politics of it. But it is crucial for a country to do that, just for us to have the numbers.
Yeah. It's good for planning, because the State Department of Planning, that is where the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, Kipra, where I come from, is actually for policy making. Now, if you get the figures right, you're on good. Your trails are now good, because you can now plan. Like in every organization, we have a long-term plan. How do you, like even let's go to the basics. What every mwananchi wants. That's now in terms of food. Let's talk of strategic grain reserve, or the mahindi, or what, the unga, all those. Now, if you know that a population in Nairobi is this is like we are in Nairobi, we are, let's say, 3 million. Now, the food reserve, or what should be stocked for these people, is this and this. And also, in terms of improving the infrastructure. Like, there is usually a debate that the sewerage system in Nairobi, the reason why we are polluting the Nairobi River and other rivers across the country is the population meant maybe for Nairobi was 2 million, but now it's like 7 million. Now, what is the effect to the population, or to the health, or to what? All this, as well as we can even have a projection on the medical services, like in Nairobi, Mbagathi Hospital is catering for which population, Mama Lucy Kibaki, Kenyatta National Hospital, so that we can have a plan and not work on emergency issues. You remember everything, it reaches.
Okay, so what you're saying is that it is important for the country for there to be a good plan,
yes,
and for the figures to be correct. But maybe let me come to you, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, on the political side of it, because there are those who would want, or there are some who imagine that if the census is not done correctly, then this would have a negative effect, or politicians could use this negatively, let me put it that way, to their advantage.
Well, I think it's both sides. The politicians would love, if you ask them, to have everyone go to their rurals and be counted, which I would say be counted where you live.
Where you live.
Where you live, because that is where the infrastructure, where the index of production and the index of consuming takes more within where you live. And for me, I think the census of 2019 for Kenya is not just for Kenya, but it gives you a projection of your country globally under the UN, and I'm believing this time we are going to use more parameters of how the UN would wish countries to ensure they count their people because of the SDGs that are there and how you share now revenue, not just our local revenue within Kenya, but also regionally, how do you compete with others? The other thing for me I would want to see within the census is Kenya is now able to understand and know, for example, in families, and I wish families will answer the questions the way they are. In fact, the law says you must answer the questions.
Correct.
Therefore, for example, those who have long-term illnesses in their families, we have a different long-term illnesses. We have the cancer, we have diabetes, we have arthritis, we have nowadays people who have problems with nerves, and we have also women within the reproductive age who you find that within you are pregnant every, let's say every year, but you end up having, losing the child within 5 months. So those are some of the very critical questions they need to answer so that government, when planning in terms of understanding, why is this region with such a disease? Why is this region with people with maybe less, with a lot of disabilities? And I'm hoping we are also going to count those with families, with children and people who are disabled. We are able to now count and know exactly what percentage we have of our elderly people. And are we able as a country to take care of all of them regardless of how they live? And I think now go to education, where we are saying we have schools, yes. And what is the percentage? Where are children dropping out? How many pregnancies? How many children are carrying children? I think that census should help us to come out with all these different tragedies we have in the country, and we are able now to plan properly. I know the politicians will be looking at, oh, how many are we in, for example, Nairobi County, so that the revenue in terms of shareable is shared properly. But I think we should go beyond that. For me, I would want to see us come out and say, we have 1,000 orphanages. Why? Where are the men and women who gave birth to these children? Why are they in children's homes? I would want to see us ask ourselves very critical questions after. And I know it's going to take a while because it's a tool that is quite heavy. So maybe in 3 months we will first find, we'll be given the first analysis, but I believe it will take a year for us to have a clear data that brings in the threshold. What I want to tell Kenyans, if you're pregnant, for example, as a mother, just know your child will not be counted. It is you who will be counted. But whoever dies on that day of the 25th will be counted.
Will be counted.
Yes, so they have to know they'll be asked. Yes, and when you're pregnant and you're not asked, don't ask them, why are you not counting my baby? No, yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's good to understand.
But looking at the politics of it, and there's a story on page 6 of the Standard, which says why politicians want you to go up country during the census, although according to Kenya National Bureau of Statistics Director General Zachary Mwangi, he has made it very clear that it is more beneficial for you to be counted where you live,
yes.
Not up country. But of course, the politicians would want you to go up country because that is to do with revenue allocation. Maybe whether to speak to that, yes. And the importance of being counted where you are, because at the end of the day, that's where it helps with planning, yes. And you stand to benefit if the planning is done properly where you live as opposed to where you come from.
Correct. I think this thing of why politicians want you to be counted, the political side of this census is the Luos would like to know how many are they. Are they the largest? So that when we are talking about going for the top seat, we say we give you number 2. Yes, when we have now surpassed the Kikuyus. That's the side. That's the part we are looking for. And that's why if we find Luos whose names are Juguna and they don't write there, I'm Luo, we feel very bad. That's what the politicians are worried about. It is not about go home, you are counted so that money is allocated. That is the secondary part But that is not the largest. What people should know is that personally I live in Machakos County, much longer than I live in Seme sub-county. So that if I'm counted there,
In Machakos.
if I'm counted in Seme sub-county, and I live here and I fall ill, my money for medicine is taken to Seme sub-county, yet I go here. The result is we will deplete the resources here. That is why it is important that you are counted where you ordinarily reside, so that the medicines, the roads, the food, if it is being brought, takes into account. Do not listen to these politicians who want a lot of money, which will then not be utilized for your benefit because you don't live there. They should, people should know that it is important that the data is captured in a way that will help you in the future. And that goes also with giving the correct information. However deep it is, give it quickly, treat these people nicely, let it go. And if you ask, there was a question, they should not ask you about your tribe, about your whatever. The truth is we will integrate as we grow as a country.
As we grow.
But for now, we are still Luos, Kikuyus, Kisis, Kambas. Let's not run away from it.
Okay.
There's nothing negative about it unless we now become selfish and whatever.
Okay, Nahashon, maybe just to make it very clear that some of those questions, some of them could be sensitive, and there is a reason for them. For instance, tribe. Somebody might wonder, why are you asking me about tribe? But what is the importance of knowing the different tribes that we have in the country? Because, of course, given the political environment that we have had as a country, the minute somebody asks tribe, you already imagine that there is something sinister that is being machinated.
The issue of tribe is actually somewhat sensitive, but if you are educated or if you are told that, first of all, the enumerators should assure the population that this is for planning purposes only, and it is a private, it is the privacy is assured. Now, when you ask your tribe, there are some tribes which are actually endangered, and because we are African, it's part of our heritage. Like there is some minor tribes like Endorois, like the Okiek, the Ndorobos. They're actually used nicely by politicians. But like when you say Kalenjins, there is no tribe called Kalenjin. Kalenjin is a community. But so if we are educated that within the Kalenjin, the Mijikenda, the Luyas, there is no tribe called Luya, there is no tribe called Mijik. That's a grouping of smaller tribes. So when you have pride in being that small community from that place, it actually brings back the heritage. And again, for planning purposes, for cultural heritage, for what the colonialists took away from us, we now have to know that we belong to somewhere. And let's have pride in it. Yeah.
All right, and maybe just to finish off on the census, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, maybe just to speak to the fact that politicians would want to use this to their advantage. However, it is important for us to give accurate information because that's what helps planning. For instance, you gave an example of issues to do with health. If we know there are X amount of people in Nairobi, that helps the government to allocate funds that are adequate to ensure that those people are taken care of. Accuracy of information.
Absolutely, and that's why I said, first of all, the moment you're asked, even without asking your tribe, I mean, Kenyans will just know. If you say you're Wede, I mean, they just know you're from Luo Nyanza, and maybe they will ask you for your ID so that they fill in quickly the first few. And from there, it will just sieve in. Whether you're in Machakos, it will show how many Luos right now are living, which is good because it gives you how Kenyans have now integrated and it's cosmopolitan. So the tribe issue is going and we are moving. I mean, if you go to Mombasa, the same, you'll find all tribes there. So for me, the issue of tribe, is, especially in the urban cities, will not be an issue because we want to see how we've integrated to each other so that we live cohesively. But then the issue of fearing the questions, we should not fear. I know they will even ask you how many acres do you have of land and what do you consume? in terms of what do you use in terms of production of agriculture and all that. It will help the government also to know whether indeed we are safe in food security, or we need to now put more planning in agriculture to help Kenyans to go back into agriculture. And I think when you look at 2018, I think it's agriculture that did very well in terms of our GDP.
Right.
You find that manufacturing has stalled so much. It's at 9%, I think, for the last, I don't know how many years. I think that's why the president was pushing it through the Agenda 4 to see whether it can also come up. So, and not just that. I would want, and I'm pleading to Kenyans, there are many things that we have as challenges. Don't fear to talk about it. I know as an enumerator, if I enter a home, I will know whether this home is below the dollar or above $1. I will just, immediately you enter, you will make a quick assessment. And that is why they are coming into the house. So don't fear. Why? Because I know many Kenyans were asking, why are you coming into the house? It's also to assess so that we know, are we just lying to Kenyans? We are a middle income country, yet you find many of our people are still very poor. And the only way you can understand that is when you sit down in that house and you listen to them, because some will tell you freely. Somebody can even ask, have you had a meal?
Have you had a meal?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
of
you
course,
might find some saying, no, we've just taken a Black Sea and we are about to sleep.
Yeah.
So it is important for the planning of government to know.
To get some of those details.
Absolutely. Because it will help them to know we either have a country where our people have become more poorer than the way they were, or we have a country where we are moving in terms of...
And of course, we're expecting another area that, of course, many Kenyans would be concerned about is the area of security.
Yes.
And we would hope that Kenya National Bureau of Statistics will give us very clear indicators of how the enumerators are going to be identified, because they're likely to be people who could take advantage and want to rob or do other things, sinister things. So hopefully we'll manage to get somebody from KNBS who can address that, the issue of security. But there's something else I wanted us to also look at before we wind up. And this is the Division of Revenue bill that has been stuck for a while. Ambrose Weda, we do know that counties are literally now grinding to a halt, and the president has made it very clear. And the, Chief Justice David Baraga threw it back again to the to Parliament, National Assembly, and the Senate to go and discuss and come up with a way forward. But of course, the question is whether that money, well, the president has said the money is not there. But we have seen that that has literally ground us to a halt at the counties. Your thoughts on how this should be resolved?
I think Parliament, National Assembly, and the Senate should be a little more serious. When the president says there's no money, it is not that the president is speaking from some hole. They know how much money is there, the loans being paid, and the net balance. This the parliamentarians should know, so that when they insist, they should be able to show there is money here, this is the money we are insisting on. By the time the delay is ended, the stalemate is ended, the wastage in terms of interest, in terms of delays, would have consumed even the amount that is forming the subject of the dispute. I would urge our members of parliament that they adopt the spirit that they normally adopt when they increase their salaries. That spirit would finalize the stalemate. Normally they come together and they talk and they embrace each other, and it's a matter of seconds. Adopt it, because the counties are now grinding to a halt. People are suffering. In Kisumu, I saw yesterday some members of those who are in the medical profession, some of them have gone on strike because they have not seen their pay. People are suffering in Upsall. But you see these MPs and the senators, they wine and dine together, and then when they come to the House, there's posturing. It is true that after loans have been paid and a portion of the money has been released to the corruption industry, there's very little. So let us get the little and deal with it quickly before we die. They should resolve it quickly.
As soon as possible.
Yes.
Honorable Elachi, you sit at the county government, and possibly just to give us insight what exactly this means if this is not resolved sooner than later.
Well, I think many counties, depending on how they do their local revenue. I think most of them survive on national government, and therefore they are gonna grind completely. So
Is that a model that should be changing? Should we be looking at
I think we should be
counties?
changing. I mean, for me, it's very unfortunate that, first of all, you have been in office, for example, for 7 years now. Definitely, you know that in the month of July, there's always a shutdown in government because we've just finished. We are coming into the new budgets, and therefore, we will have a shortage. And I've always wished the local revenues and even the revenues in national government that we collect, at that time, in the month of May and June, you can be able to ensure you account for everything, and so that you just bank it into your local revenue account, where you know you'll have salaries for your team. But now, because county governments have, and I know our local revenue is you collect and consume. Now, that's another challenge for Kenya. But then, at the same time, all the local revenues were left for county governments, meaning the national government does not touch your local revenue. So why can't you try and save that for once and say, this, in the month of June, July, I'll be able to pay my people salaries as I wait now the new allocations to come in. And it is something county governments must start practicing. And I think the most sad, again, is that if you have a president who doesn't believe in counties one time in this country, does it mean we'll shut down the counties? Because it is unfortunate.
Well, I guess that's why it's enshrined in the Constitution, the percentage that is supposed to go to the county government. Because
yes,
then
and I know as women we are even saying push it to 45. But are the governors saving it to say, when things are hot, I can still have a reserve where I can pick?
Can still pay my...
You see, they still look at the same consolidated fund that is at the national government, which they should start thinking that way, that you can have your own reserve.
Although some counties
but some counties have.
Some counties might argue that they do not have as much resource, for instance, as Nairobi. If you went to maybe Turkana, the amount of collection cannot be expected to be as...
But Turkana, we are giving you 10 billion per year, my friend. 10 billion. That's what you get from the national government. And Nairobi gets 15, and look at Nairobi, 4 million, and you how many? So you have to ask yourself at that place.
Yeah, right. Just allow me to say this. I think Mheshimiwa does not seem to... You are too comfortable to understand that the revenue being talked about is for provision of services, not salaries. Take, for instance, Kisumu. I think the amount they collect is not even enough to buy drugs. And people are dying. So this money that is waited for, that is being sought, is money for services. Salaries, even if it is not paid, can wait for
you just say your people are dying.
Yes.
And all counties are crying they have no salaries. I haven't heard even one saying they have no medicine.
You see, salaries are now the office.
Which makes us question the priorities.
Yeah.
Salaries are now, because it's the officers talking, and that's what they see. But the underlying threshold is that services are not being rendered. And some of those services are about life, drugs, medicine, treatment. Even when you have a doctor who has slept hungry and a nurse, surely people are dying. So it's not about salaries. Tell your friends when you meet them in big places,
I
it is not about salaries.
On this before we wind up, Nash, and your contribution on this in regards to the division of revenue.
Okay, what I really want to our senators and our MPs to come to an understanding is let there be a consensus. As Uda said, as talked about, we know what is there, what is available, all the loans we have, and we know the net balance of all the monies we have. Now, what we need to do is let's agree that for for devolution to work, money must be at the counties. I've been a regular visitor to the referral hospitals and the clinics at counties. And you realize that if there is no Panad or any essential like non-surgical, non-pharmaceutical products in an hospital, that there is no hospital there because they need to handle emergency, someone has been cut. Now, if we don't release the monies to the counties, we are killing devolution. And that is not the essence of this new constitution. So what I really want to appreciate is there are some governors who have done their part. They have sought the assemblies to use money at source, because I know of an example is Narok County, where I was so impressed to find out that they have already paid their salaries to the staff. And if you go to the hospital, you can find medicine there. So there are some governors who actually know how to go about. So bring out the geniusness in you as a governor, as we wait for the national government to release the cash.
To release the cash.
Yes.
All right, we'll have to wind up now because of time. I'll just give you each 30 seconds to give your closing remarks. And this is in regards to where we are as a country and what to look forward to. We have the census coming up. We have IEBC, which some are concerned that regarding their constitution and how they are now, are they prepared to handle some of these things? We're waiting. But I'll start with you, Ambrose Weda, with your closing remarks.
Yes, I think let's take the census very seriously. I wish they had put a question on whether or not you have participated in corruption so that we get data. But that is us, by the way. Let us give it the seriousness it deserves. However, you may feel bad, you may feel government is not doing well, but for the sake of our nation, try to give the best information
that you can give. Or yes. Honorable Beatrice Elachi, your closing remarks.
I think I would just voice in that let us be counted. This is for the sake of our own planning as a country and as for counties. For the counties who have paid salaries, we say kudos to the governors, and I wish the other governors will be able to see how to manage also so that we don't have the strikes, especially for the medics and all that. For Parliament, I know when they come back, I'm hoping the stalemate will be over and they will agree on the revenue that we need to share. Whatever we have is what Kenyans have given us.
Absolutely. So all right, Nahashon, you get the last word.
So I really, I will stand to be counted, and I will, as a person, I'll make sure I give the correct information to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics for the sake of planning. Even I know when we will be having the boundaries review, they will relate to the census, and I want the government to assure us on the security. And by then, we need real data that will help us as a population and as a government to make informed decisions.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Nahashon Moitalel, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, and Ambrose Weda for joining us this morning.